the fifth session of Secrets of Spirituality. The brief recap of whatever discussed yesterday regarding this particular tabular column, which you are seeing on the screen now. I choose these 5 terminologies: physical body, etheric body, astral body, psychic body, and causal body. Physical body is basically material. Etheric body is basically vital, which means the physical body can radiate this energy around it, or this energy can be supplied from outside also. Both are possible. And the vitality for the material body is itself etheric body. Then the vitality and the material together are going to be utilized by mind and intellect. So mind itself is another subtle energy form, and that is called as astral body. Again, the mind is governed by intellect, and the intellect is responsible for decision making, and that itself is a psychic body. And finally, all these 4 are again governed by self. The self itself takes the form of ego in the 2 states of awakened and dreaming. In the sleeping state, there is no ego, but the self is not bound by time and space. So the self is there all the 24 hours. Ego is there for some hours out of these 24 hours. Which means in the awakened state, ego is there, intellect is there, mind is there, body is there. In the dreaming state, intellect may not be actually taking decisions, but mind is there, and even though body is there in the dreaming state, the awareness of the body is not there to the ego. Whereas in the sleeping state, all these 4, even though they are there, there is no awareness of them. Because in the sleeping state, neither the body awareness, nor thoughts, nor any decision making, nor any ego. But all the processes of the body are happening on their own. And when these processes of the body will stop, only when physical death occurs. Which means, whenever physical death occurs, how come all these processes stop? Heart stops, breathing stops, brain's working stops. This means that there is this self. Because of the presence of the self in the body, there is heart beating, breathing happening, brain working. The time when the self takes an initiative or takes a decision or takes a force of will or whatever to stop the activities or to stop using the 4 koshas, that is when the 4 koshas no more function anymore. That is why it is called as causal body, and here it is mentioned as the intuitional type. In general, intuition means tuition from inside. This I had mentioned earlier. Which means, even though we think that we are the owners of the body, and we think that we are using this body, we think that way only in the awakened state. That's all. Out of the 24 hours, if we remain awakened for 12 hours or 14 hours, in these 14 hours, we keep thinking that this is our body, this is our body, this is our body. But in the dreaming state, you will not have an experience of the body. In the dreaming state, you are in a different realm as such. And in the dreaming state, You will not be taking any decisions as such. Still, you will only be experiencing the dream, which means there is a transition from the awakened state to the dreaming state. And gradually from the dreaming state, when the transition happens to the sleeping state, there is no ego also. There is no memories functionality also. There is no decision making. There are no thoughts in the sleeping state. Nothing as such. Which means that every night when everyone sleeps, there is always a mental inactivity. And again, when you wake up, there is a mental activity and then a physical activity. So how come this physical activity and mental activity are completely suspended in the sleeping state? And when you wake up, how come they are resumed? And in the dreaming state, there is only a mental activity and there is no physical activity, which simply means that the physical body is governed by the etheric body, and the etheric body is governed by the astral body, and the astral body is governed by the psychic body, and that in turn is governed by one more body called causal body. And the causal body is the seat for the soul. You call it as self, or you call it as soul, you call it as Atma, in whichever way. But the self or soul is not available for your sensory experiences. In fact, sensory experiences happen only when you have ego. Even in the dreaming state, those experiences of the memory recall, or in the dreaming state, the experiences of some imaginary states, or maybe creative states, that is happening because of something which is beyond that. So, even without meditation also, even without any such occult experiences or spiritual experiences also, just by a sheer logic of discriminating between the three states of awakened, dreaming, and sleeping, we can come to a conclusion that the sleeping state is not actually an empty state. Sleeping state is a resting state for the body. So, physical body is referred as body at the bottom here. Etheric body is referred as the cause for breath here, because through breathing only prana is happening. Whenever breathing stops, prana's functionality stops. Then mental body is nothing but mind, intellectual body is nothing but intellect, and intuitional body is nothing but soul. So the conclusion of my discussion till now is the soul is not available to any experiences as such. The soul self cannot be realized by any experience, because experience is always involved with the flow of energy, and experiences may also be involved with the usage of sense organs. You can perform a small meditation using all these five koshas, properties or colors, by using the last column. You can visualize the physical body as purely healthy. You can visualize the etheric body as purely sky blue. You can visualize the astral body as pure rainbow color. And you can visualize the psychic body as pure white color. And you can visualize the causal body as pure golden color, which I have been referring as Hiranyagarbha. So in general, whatever we visualize, whatever we intend, that is going to gradually manifest in these koshas, because it is we who are using this body. We are part of the divinity, and we are basically self. That is the true meaning of the Vedic statements, Aham Brahmasmi Tat Tvam Asi. When we say Aham Brahmasmi, means I am part of the divinity. Tat Tvam Asi means you are also part of the divinity. Because there is divinity within, that is how body is functioning on its own. And when this divinity decides to end this functionality, that is when breathing stops, heart stops, and physical death happens. So that way, now with this I come to the conclusion of the first part of my presentation. I wanted to discuss more about these sheaths or koshas. This is the end of this first part of the presentation. Brahma eva satyam means the self itself is truth. All other things are transitory. All other things are going to change. Whereas the self is not bound by time, not bound by space. Self is part of God. You can visit our website for a refreshing material, or you can download all these PowerPoints from the website as well. Let me move on to the second part of the slides. I have been discussing about the main chakra centers. Mooladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipura, Anahata, Vishuddha, Ajna, Sahasrara. And there are some pictures around. These are all the pictures of the yogic practices. You can see the breathing practice, you can see the yogasana practices, and you can see the Chandra Namaskara, Surya Namaskara diagrams. You can see a meditative. So now we'll discuss a little bit about the science of yoga or the science of self-realization. Yoga is completely part of spiritual practice itself. So if I don't discuss about yoga, then my discussion about spirituality itself is incomplete. That is why now I'm going to start about the discussion of yoga. YOGA is your origination in God's action. You just think how you were born. You were born as told by your parents, and they tell your date of birth and time of birth, and they record it maybe in a horoscope also, or they will have a birth certificate. But maybe 9 months before, inside your own mother's womb, it was a small zygote which became an embryo, and gradually the embryo grew up with the cellular multiplication, and gradually brain got formed. In the brain, eyes got formed, ears got formed, mouth got formed. Gradually, body got formed. In the body, inside, heart, lungs, liver, intestine, stomach, kidneys, everything got formed. Outside, 2 hands and 2 legs got formed. And in the hands, 10 fingers. In the legs, 10 fingers got formed. All these happened in 9 months. From a small embryo to a physical body, this happened in 9 months. Now, in this process, it was not mother's decision, it was not father's decision. They were only instrumental. Later on, mother was carrying this embryo in the womb, and even she was not fully aware of the processes that are happening within. After 9 months, the body comes out, and then they say, you are born, and they declare your date of birth. But the question here is it date of birth or is it date of exit? It is a date of exit from the womb. Which one should you say as date of birth? Because what is this birth called as? Because the body was constructed inside, meticulously, well planned, for months together. So when we say that my date of birth is so and so, what is that my date of birth? Philosophically or spiritually, if you think, what is that your date of birth? It is the date of exit of the physical body from the mother's womb. So can we say you were born, or can we say you were constructed, or can we say you were designed and manufactured? And let us say you were born on a particular day. When did you come to know about your own birth? On your first birthday, second birthday, third birthday. When you were born, you also did not know who your mother was, who your father was. You used to sleep for 18 to 20 hours per day. And whenever you used to wake up, you used to cry or smile. And whenever you used to be hungry, you used to suck milk from your mother's breast. But you never knew at that time also that it is your mother's breast. Later on, maybe after 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, gradually when you learn how to speak, that is when your parents tell you to call them as mommy and daddy, amma and appa, mama and papa. So, philosophically and spiritually, think, is it date of birth or is it date of exit? Now, if it is date of exit, how an embryo became a full-fledged, well-planned, complicated nervous system, respiratory system, digestive system, excretory system, sensory system, and as soon as it came out of the womb, it started working. When it was inside the womb, there was no breathing. When it came outside the womb, breathing started. And later on, the umbilical cord from the mother's body was severed. And later on, this body became independently functioning. Until then, the nutrition that is required for the growth of the body was supplied by the umbilical cord, by the mother's body's nutrition itself. Now, the part here is, you were not aware of this process. Your mother is not aware of this process. Your father is not aware of this process. But when you come out of the body, they say, my child, my child. Your father will say, you are my child. Mother will say, you are my child. But did they manufacture your body? Did they design your body? No. Just to give one more example. Your eyes are made up of a biological lens. And the biological lens is basically of biological glass. That biological glass is basically biological silicon dioxide. All the glass is basically made up of silicon dioxide or a fine sand. In fact, glass is manufactured by boiling sand itself, purifying sand and then boiling sand, liquefying it and suddenly cooling it. That is how glass is manufactured. So when your eyes are formed inside your mother's womb, when you were there, from which particular source the silicon dioxide got supplied into the womb? Did your mother consume sand? Did your mother consume mud? Did your mother consume silicon dioxide? Your mother used to consume food as such. So how come it is possible that when your body was being manufactured inside your mother's womb, how the eyes got designed, and into the eyes, how the silicon dioxide got entangled there or enjoined there? So, logically, faithfully, you have to conclude that your body is designed and manufactured by some other high-level spiritual entity or some other high-level spiritual presence. That itself, you call it as God. Then yoga is basically your origination in God's action. You will have to find out your origination in God's action, and you will have to realize your true nature. Your true nature is the nature of the self or the part of the divine. That is the basic purpose of yoga. To give one more example, in the egg you will see only white and yellow. When the same egg is incubated, gradually by a daily incubation, by transference of temperature into the egg, gradually the yellow and white gradually transform into a physical body of a small chick with the beak at the front, two small eyes, head, two wings, two legs, fingers in the legs, and the chick breaks its own egg and comes out and starts walking, starts chirping. Now the egg, which is having only yellow and white, it is simply protein. How come these protein molecules got joined together to form a live physical body, where the hen is only instrumental in incubation? Even the hen is unaware of the process. Even the chick is unaware of the process. Chick was not there few days before. Chick comes into existence only when it wakes up inside the egg and breaks its own shell. Now the hen is totally unaware of what process is happening inside its own body or inside the egg itself during incubation. But we as human beings can observe this process, and we can come to a very strong conclusion that life is not just chemistry. Life is not just physics. Life is not just biology. Life is not just materials. Life is not just combination of compounds. Life is not just plants and animals and humans. There is some other much bigger high-level intelligence or high-level consciousness that is planning all the processes everywhere in this nature. And that is how Udbhija, Svedaja, Andaja, Jarayuja, Manuja, the 5 types of reproduction, basically 4 types of reproduction, because Manuja himself is a Jarayuja. The one which sprouts and is growing is called Udbhija. The one which is designed and manufactured inside water is called Svedaja. The one which is coming out of an egg as a life form is called Andaja. The one which is coming out of the womb is called Jarayuja. Finally, I mentioned Manuja because human being is much different from all these 4 types because of only the intellectual abilities. Otherwise, Manuja is also Jarayuja only. Human being is also born from the womb only. Now, is this simply something which we take very lightly? Or is this all of us have to seriously think that it is God's action only? Or else it is whose action? If you say that it is nature, then I should say that it is well planned. When it is well planned, in nature, who planned it? Now, why don't you admit that it is God's action? Whichever is governing nature's functionality, whichever is governing the life's functionality, whichever is governing the body's functionality, why don't you admit it as God? Instead, people look for God at different places. People think God is there elsewhere, somewhere at a distance. They are so wrong. I'll tell you a small story. In an ashram or monastery, there was a master and a student. There was a guru and a shishya. Shishya used to stay for years together with the guru for the spiritual studies. And after so many years, nearly 12 years, Shishya completed his education, and after that he wanted to go back to his native place. He had come to the Gurukula 12 years before. Now Guru gave him permission to go back to the native place. Now, between the native place of the disciple and the monastery of the master, there was a desert. And earlier, the boy's parents had brought him all the way. Now the boy has to go back alone. So he asked his master, how will I cross the desert now? And the master told, okay, in my ashram, I have many horses. So you take one horse and you go. Disciple told, how will I give back the horse? Then the Guru told, right now don't worry about it. Whenever it is possible for you, bring back the horse. But right now you have to go back to native place. So take the horse with you, ride the horse and go. Shishya agreed. He bowed to his Guru's feet and he bid goodbye to the master and he went away. In a hurry to go to his native place, he had forgotten that the desert is really a large one and he may not be getting water there. He had forgotten to carry water with him. On the way, when he was traveling through the desert, he could not get water anywhere. He became thirsty. Even the horse was thirsty. And he ignored for some time, but due to the sun blaze, after some time, horse became so much exhausted and the horse fell down and fainted. He came down from the horse and he was also so much thirsty and he also could not move. After some time, he somehow picked up the strength, but he is seeing that the horse is dead. Because of the exhaustion, horse is dead. Now what to do? There's a dead horse. Now he has to walk through the desert. Anyhow, he thought, let me dig here and let me bury the horse. He dug the sand there and he buried the horse. And adjacent to that horse's grave, he sat. He thought he may get some help, or he thought, let me see after some time. Of course, my horse is dead and I am alive. Let me relax for some time. After a few hours, one caravan came on the same way. It was the caravan of the merchants who were trying to cross the desert. They saw this fellow from a distance and they came there to see or to offer help. And they gave him some water immediately. And the merchants asked him, what happened? Now the students have to tell the truth that he was traveling to the horse. He had forgotten to take water with him and horse became exhausted and horse died and he has buried the horse. This is what he is supposed to tell. But as he was coming after about 12 years of completing the education, he thought it is an insult to say that he forgot to carry water with him, and he thought that it is an insult to say that horse is dead and he has buried. He thought, let me tell a lie. What he told was, me and my Guru were crossing the desert. My Guru had forgotten to carry water with him. So on the way, as my Guru was old, he became exhausted and the Guru died because of thirst. And out of my own devotion to him, I dug this sand and I have buried my Guru. He told an opportunistic lie just to save his ego. Immediately merchants thought, is it Guru's grave? He said, yes. Oh, it is Guru's grave. Then the merchant said, anyway, every month we keep crossing the desert. You don't have to worry. We will build a small temple here because it is your Guru's grave. A small temple here. And we will keep coming. Every month we will keep coming here. We will keep offering you food and whatever you require. The basic necessity will be provided to you. and you can remain as a priest here. Now the student thought, what a beautiful chance. Education is over and placement is done. What a beautiful chance. And he said, okay, because he cannot say anything else. He only told that it is his guru's grave. He cannot say anything else. He said, let me go back to my native place, then let me come back. Merchant said, okay, no problem. We will help you to cross the desert and we will help you to meet your parents. But then you come back with us. We will anyhow keep crossing the desert. You come back with us. You stay here. He said, okay. And this happened actually, that he stayed there. They built a temple there and they built many other structures there. And gradually all facilities were given. Water was stored there. Food was stored there. And gradually over a period of few years, it became a place of pilgrimage. After about 10 to 15 years, it became a place of pilgrimage. And many people started visiting this particular place, which is in the middle of the desert. And people used to say it is a guru's grave, but it was basically a horse's grave. Okay. After about 10-15 years, the name spread everywhere that in the desert there is a guru's grave, which is a pilgrimage center. And this news gradually reached the real guru, who was at the other side of the desert. The real guru thought, people are saying that there is a place of pilgrimage in the middle of the desert and they say that it is some guru's grave. Let me see which is that place which I have not heard and which I have not seen. So he came there and he saw that his own disciple has become a priest there. Now the guru told, what, my dear? This is guru's grave. Which guru's grave? I am right now alive. I was your guru and I am right now alive. You are working as a priest here. This is which guru's grave? Then the disciple told that, I'm sorry, at that time I told an opportunistic lie. I could not say that the horse died and I could not say that I forgot to bring water. I thought it is very easy to blame the elders or blame the gurus. I simply told an opportunistic lie. I'm sorry, sir. But this did not happen intentionally. At that moment this happened, but gradually the merchants helped me and they built a temple structure here and it became a facility for my livelihood also. I did not mean it actually, but somehow it happened. Then the guru said, okay, no problem. You are a fit disciple for me. Now the disciple said, sir, please don't feel sad, please don't feel bad, and don't say that I am a fit disciple for you. I was not a fit disciple for you. I told a lie here. Again Guru said, don't worry, you are a fit disciple for me. Again the disciple said, sir, why are you so upset? You are repeating the sentence again and again. Then the Guru said, have you seen my Guru's grave in my ashram? Yes, sir, in your ashram you have your Guru's grave, right? Then the Guru said, that is this horse's mother. The Guru said, that was also a horse only. That horse was this horse's mother. This is a very funny story where people think that God is there in temples and gurus are there in graves. So in so many places, tombs and graves are worshipped and physical solid structures are considered as the divine places. Of course, structures have to be required for a systematic practice of spirituality. Worships are required for the discipline of life. But what has happened now is, in the process of counting the trees, the beauty of the forest is lost now. Which means, People are thinking that God is there in the temples. God can omnipresent divinity. So the science of yoga is nothing but finding out your origination in God's action. The science of yoga is not just practicing asanas. It is not just practicing breathing exercise. It is not just meditating. It is not just healthy lifestyle. Health is an outcome of these practices. That's all. The real purpose of yoga is self-realization only. The real purpose of yoga is not health. Health is a byproduct out of the practices that are done. So yoga is your origination in God's action, which you are supposed to realize. This is my title. In fact, the title Yogacharya was given to me in 2017 by my lineage. I belong to Dr. Swami Geetanandagiri's lineage, and my guru was Yogashri Vidyaratan A.S. Narasimhamurthy of Bengaluru. His guru was Dr. Swami Geetanandagiri of Pondicherry. His guru was Kanakananda Prabhu. So I belong to a very holy lineage, and remind my audience once again, this title is given to me by my lineage. I am not putting it on my own. So my name you already know. My technical qualifications are seen here, but I am very much proud of my spiritual qualifications, Samskrita Kovida and Gita Kovida. And I have been practicing pranic healing from last 20 years. I have done 2 courses in pranic healing, basic course and then advanced course. That's why I have put my title as Advanced Pranic Healer. First, let us see what yoga is not. In what way yoga is misunderstood. Let us see that. Is this yoga? Ask yourself. Is this yoga? I appreciate this boy. He has put both of his legs behind his neck and he is in the Namaskara Mudra. But the point here is, this boy is quite young and at his age he can do this because body is flexible. But if at all you get aged to 35, 40, 45, 50, what will happen if you try to do this? If you try to do this particular posture, you may lose both of your legs. If at all forcibly you try to do this posture, it will become very difficult for you to unlock these 2 legs. You will have to ask somebody else to slightly remove your legs. And by the time they remove your legs, you would have broken both of the legs. So my dear audience, is this yoga? Don't come to a conclusion that this is yoga. Okay. Patanjali did not mention these complicated asanas in his Yoga Sutra. In fact, Patanjali did not mention many asanas in his Yoga Sutra. He had mentioned only basic asanas. Patanjali said, Sthiram Sukham Asanam. Means stable and comfortable posture itself is asana. That is what Patanjali told. Patanjali never mentioned such complicated yogasanas. But gradually, when yoga became more and more commercialized, and when yoga became a marketing tool, when many schools of yoga came into picture, and when people started self-proclaiming themselves as yoga teachers, that is when they started adding more and more of postures, as if a multi-cuisine restaurant will have a thick booklet of menu, and in the thick booklet you will see lot of varieties of food and delicacies. It is purposefully done that way to attract the customers. Same way, even in the practice of yoga, they kept on adding more and more such varieties of physical practices. And people are made to think now that having such postures itself is yoga. Sadly, they conduct competitions in these yogasanas. Yoga is not for competition at all. Practice of yoga is to cause the reduction of the ego and not to cause the increase of the ego. Now, when a competition happens, there will be a first prize, a second prize, and third prize. Naturally, the person who gets the first prize will have the ego increased, and the person who gets the second prize will have the ego slightly shattered, and the person who gets the third prize will have jealousy over both of the other two prizes. If such thing happens, how can that lead to self-realization? Yoga basically is meant to reduce the ego, not to increase the ego. That way, yoga is not the practice of such complicated postures. Yoga is not a set of physical exercises. Performing complicated postures is not yoga. But asana is part of yoga. Why asana is part of yoga? Because out of Ashtanga, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Asana is part of yoga because sthiram, sukham, asanam. Stability is required, comfort is required. Practicing of asana is meant for making the body comfortable, not to increase the pain. So asana is part of yoga. Now, the next part is, there is another set called pranayama. There are people who practice pranayama applying padmasana and lie down on the lake and float there for hours together, and they proclaim that they are great yogis. Floating on water, holding the breath, is it yoga? Will it reduce the ego or will it increase the ego? When a person is holding the breath and floating on water, press people will come, videos will be taken, photographs will be taken, in the newspaper, pictures will come. Now, how come that can be called as yoga? Because that is an exhibition of a personal ability. In what way the person will be able to realize the self, or in what way the person will be able to understand that YOGA is finding out your origination in God's action? In what way this is all connected to God? Nothing. It is all meant for a personal satisfaction and the exhibition of a personal ability. Yoga is not a process of breath control, holding the breath and making the public happy, or digging a pit in the mud and staying inside the pit for hours together, sometimes days together, breathless, and showing that this is an accomplishment of yoga. No. Whatever causes the increase of the ego cannot be yoga, because the increase of ego is going to take the person away from God. When the increase of the ego takes the person away from God, how can that be a practice of yoga? Remaining breathless to impress people is not yoga. But pranayama is part of yoga. Why pranayama is part of yoga? When you try to control the breath, you will have to find out who causes the breath. When you are born from your mother's womb, in the first place, who gave you instruction to start breathing? Let us say after a few years when you have a physical death, who will give an instruction to stop breathing? Nobody gave you instruction to start. Nobody will give you instruction to stop. But right now prana is working. If prana is working, how come prana started working and how come prana stops working? If that has to be understood, breath has to be understood in its correct functionality. That is why pranayama is part of yoga. Asana, pranayama. Asana is prescribed in the practice of yoga to keep the body flexible and fit. Easeful body and peaceful mind will be useful. If the body is flexible, easy to move, easy to sit down, easy to stand up, easy to lie down, easy to come up, then you will have really a flexible body, fit body, healthy body. And if the mind is peaceful, only then you can make an effort to reduce the ego further. If the mind is not under peace, it will be very difficult to have a reduction of the ego. So asana is prescribed in the practice of yoga to keep the body flexible and fit. Otherwise, with aging, the body becomes tough and rigid. In my audience, if there are people who are above 35 and 40, you will have to understand that how your body was when you were 20 years of age. Until 25 years of age, body keeps growing. After 25 to 50, somehow body remains in the same size. After crossing 50, the body starts decaying within. In the first part of life, it grows. In the second part of life, it remains like that. In the third part of life, the body starts decaying within. Now, if you want to reduce the effect of the decaying, or if you want to reduce the effect of aging, then you should not allow the body to become tough and rigid. Just like you are jumping in a young age, you must be able to jump even in the old age. That is possible only if your body is flexible. For this purpose, asana is prescribed. And it is not to put your legs behind your neck and then to have a selfie there or a photograph there. Pranayama is prescribed in the practice of yoga to have enough oxygen in the blood. This I have been telling repeatedly in my previous sessions also. Your food gets digested, becomes glucose, gets into the blood. And when you breathe in, the oxygen goes inside the blood and the metabolic activity happens, due to which the glucose is burnt and it releases energy, 686 kilocalories. I'm going to show you the equation also now. Otherwise, the mitochondria will not produce enough energy that is required, as you can see this equation, C6H12O6 plus 6O2 yields 6CO2 plus 6H2O plus 686 kilocalories of energy. Whatever food you consume, the food will contain proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. And most portion of the food is basically carbohydrates. And even then when it is digested, when it goes into the blood, it is becoming glucose molecule. The food which is digested gets into the bloodstream and most of it is glucose molecule. And when you breathe, your breath contains about 21% of oxygen, and the oxygen gets absorbed by the hemoglobin. Glucose is transported in the blood, and the red blood cell absorbs both of these. Inside the red blood cell, there is a small part called mitochondria. Inside the mitochondria, one glucose molecule utilizes 6 molecules of oxygen to yield 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 6 molecules of water and 686 kilocalories of energy. Now the 6 molecules of carbon dioxide come out of the red blood cell and they get released out through your out breath in the breathing cycle. The 6 molecules of water, they get released back to the bloodstream and they go out either as sweat or as urine. Now the 686 kilocalories of energy is measured in terms of calories, and that is when the body remains warm. In fact, only the 686 kilocalories of energy is measured, but it is also releasing prana. That prana is not measured by means of any physical apparatus. But I have already shown you the picture of aura. Prana can be measured by means of a Kirlian photography or by means of a Korotkov's device. I have already told you about it in the previous session. Here in the biochemical equation, they measure only the thermal aspect of this energy. They do not understand that there is a magnetic aspect of this energy as well. That is the limitation of the physical science there. So look at this equation now. Whenever you consume food, food will become glucose, and through the breathing, oxygen is utilized, and that is going to yield energy. Now, if glucose is more, then they say blood sugar level is increased. Now, the solution to reduce the blood sugar level is what? To supply more oxygen. To supply more oxygen, what is the point? Point is to have physical exercise or pranayama. Supply more oxygen. Naturally, the excess oxygen in the blood will burn all the glucose and it will produce more energy. Now, if you want to prevent diabetes, you will have to practice pranayama. If you don't want your blood sugar level to increase, then you will have to supply more oxygen into the blood. That is the only way. In any other way, you try to control the blood sugar level, you will basically upset the physiological system that way. So the wise decision, even for the diabetic people, is to involve themselves in mild physical exercises, if possible, yogasana practices, and still, if possible, pranayama practices, and supply more oxygen into the blood. Just look at this equation. One glucose molecule requires 6 molecules of oxygen, which means we have to breathe more when we consume food more. Just like you are filling your stomach with food, you should fill your lungs with breath. Both are required. In Kannada, I used to keep on saying, ಹೊಟ್ಟೆ ತುಂಬ ಉಸಿರಾಡಿ, ಹೊಟ್ಟೆ ತುಂಬ ಊಟ ಮಾಡಿ, ಎದೆ ತುಂಬ ಉಸಿರಾಡಿ. I used to keep saying that, eat stomach full, but breathe chest full. When people forget to breathe properly, then only the sugar level in the blood increases. See, don't keep on putting me chat messages. I can't help it. I have been telling you again and again and again. Don't keep on putting that voice is broken, voice is broken. How can I help you? Tell me. You are distracting my normal flow of speech. In whichever way you type hundreds of messages, there is no solution for this. I have told you already. You keep on listening whenever it is possible to listen. In addition, pranayama in reality is meant for experiencing the subtle energy of life. The purpose of pranayama is not basically to oxygenate the blood. As I told you, health is a byproduct of the practices. Yoga practices are not actually done for health. They are actually performed for the purpose of self-realization. But the byproducts are we are going to get a good health. So pranayama is basically meant for experiencing the subtle energy of life, means which is that energy which is keeping you alive? Is it air? Is it oxygen? Is it glucose? Is it red blood cell? Is it mitochondria? Or is it prana? Prana is something different from all these things. Prana is different from food. Prana is different from breath. But prana is the outcome. So, if at all you have to understand that there is a other subtle energy that is keeping your body alive, then you will have to understand the process of pranayama with a much deeper aspect. That is why pranayama is prescribed in the practice of yoga. Let us see again what yoga is not. There are thousands of meditation centers where they call you inside. They will give you some mat, you will sit there. They will say that they will teach you meditation. And then you will also sit there. And you will be told to visualize a lake or to visualize a serene place, visualize a garden, or to listen to a sound. Keep on focusing on the sound. There may be a bell ringing, there may be a conch blowing, and there may be a chanting of Omkara. Generally, in the meditation classes, all these will happen. Or else they may say, keep on observing your thoughts. Don't stop your thoughts. Let thoughts keep coming there. But don't promote the thoughts. Let the thoughts come and go, come and go. You don't actually initiate the thoughts. You simply be aware of the thoughts. This is how they keep teaching. And they say this is meditation. And they say, sit for at least 20 minutes with your eyes closed. Initially, breathe deeply. Then gradually focus your concentration on in the middle of the eyebrows. So such methods they keep on teaching. Remember, I am not finding blame with them. I am not blaming them. I am not finding fault with them. But the question is that yoga? Let us say the people who meditate daily for 1 hour, keeping the eyes closed, we can say that they have attained focus, they have attained concentration. But will self-realization happen? I also used to attend many courses earlier. Some for my curiosity, some for understanding about what exactly is being taught at different places. I also used to visit these places. And many times, when they told keep your eyes closed and remain calm, I used to hear snoring sound from my neighbors. Some of my neighbors used to go into deep sleep even in the sitting posture. And they used to snore after some time. And later on, the instructor used to say that slowly open your eyes, slowly take deep breath, and let us end the meditation. Then these people who were snoring about 5 to 10 minutes before, they used to open their eyes and they used to say, what a beautiful meditation we had. And I used to laugh within, what a beautiful sleep you had and what a great disturbance I had, because I was listening to your snoring. But I could not tell them that, because they were under the illusion that that is meditation. But did they realize God? Did they ever try to understand God in that particular posture? Many times people keep on using these words that yoga and meditation, yoga and meditation. That means they say yoga means yogasana, then and meditation. They think that meditation is different from yoga because they have equated yoga to only physical postures. Sometimes they say yoga pranayama meditation. That also they say. They think that pranayama is again different from yoga. Too much confusions. Why too much confusions? In all of these schools, hardly the teacher has studied the Yoga Sutra. All the yoga teachers throughout the world, if they would have studied the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, they would not misguide people this way. Actually, they are misguiding people this way. Without studying Yoga Sutra, if they teach yoga, then what does it mean? It simply means that without studying the textbook, if some teacher is teaching the concept, what does it mean? Is it teaching or is it cheating? All of these yoga teachers should sincerely ask themselves. Now you may say, sir, we don't know, sir. What is our choice, sir? We don't know, sir, you may say. Then I should say, it is your choice only. You should search. You should understand. You should realize, is it teaching or is it cheating? Because many times there can be a nexus of both. There can be a nexus of both types of people. Both want to satisfy their ego, as if they are doing some great practices. But sincerely, people have to keep asking questions whether this practice is taking them nearer to God or not. If that is not taking them nearer to God, then that is not yoga. That is something else. That is simply marketing. That is simply business. So, yoga is not a method of meditation. Sitting with eyes closed for hours together is not yoga. But dhyana is part of yoga. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. If the practices can lead you towards samadhi, then those practices are worth it. Some are adhi. That is going to lead you to self-realization. I told you the story of Sadashiva Brahmendra. What else I should tell? That life story of Sadashiva Brahmendra is a great example or a great evidence about how powerful yoga can be. So dhyana is part of yoga. Dhyana is prescribed in the practice of yoga to have control over the activity of the mind, and then to understand the mind, and then to understand the guiding force of the mind. Mind is basically fictitious and vacillating. When the mind is vacillating, the vacillating mind has to be brought into control. Then the mind will be understood by whom? The mind will be understood by the one who is using the mind. And then the one who is using the mind has to understand the mind, and the one who is understanding the mind also has to understand what is that which is causing the mind. I told you the three states of awakened, dreaming, and sleeping. In the sleeping state, there is no activity of the mind. But when you get awakened, again mind comes into existence. Which means, if brain is only a mass of flesh. Brain came out from the mother's womb. Now, in the womb was there consciousness. In the brain is there consciousness. Is it the brain which is taking the body into three states? Or is there something else which is using the brain as a tool for taking the body into the three states? If that has to be understood, brain's activity has to be consciously stopped. If the brain's activity is consciously stopped, let us say the ego itself is consciously stopped. Now the source of the ego can be realized. That is why I have been telling, self-realization is not an experience, because in self-realization, there is no ego. When there is no ego, how can there be an experience? That is why dhyana is prescribed by Patanjali. The mind remains vacillating, and if left for itself, the mind remains busy, generating thoughts throughout the day. The adult human mind generates 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day, in which nearly 90% of them are repetitive, especially the urban mind. Urban people or the city dwelling people will have more and more of thoughts per day. So in that case, on an average, the adult human mind generates 12,000 to 6,000 thoughts per day. And out of that, nearly 90% of them are repetitive. If at all you observe your own thoughts per day, whatever you think you are going to talk, just observe your own talk. Most of your talk also is repetitive. Day in and day out. Today, whatever you spoke, tomorrow also you will speak. Tomorrow, whatever you speak, day after tomorrow you will speak. Which means that you think the same thing and you speak the same thing day in and day out. This simply means 90% of the thoughts are repetitive. And in this 90% of the thoughts which are repetitive, majority of the thoughts are negative, filled with more imagination, more anxiety, more fear, and more stress. Now, throughout the world, people keep on talking about corona pandemic, then about death rate, then about economical problems, then about problems in the lifestyle, and about online teaching, online sessions. And even in the online sessions, again they talk about corona pandemic, when this will end. We don't know. What is there in USA? First peak, second peak. What about Russia? Now it is in Brazil. What about in India? They keep on talking about it. In whichever way people talk, they talk about death. The question is, as soon as the body was born, death became certain. If death has to be avoided, body should not be born. Because as soon as a body is born, as soon as a breathing is started, it is 100% guaranteed that someday breathing will stop and someday death will happen. Only the time span is different there. Now, keeping on talking about death, is it of any use? Keeping on talking about what is happening on this earth, is it of any use? Because who spoiled this nature and who caused this calamity? The people who thought earth belongs to them, and the people who thought everything belongs to them, the people who became highly selfish and greedy, majority of them, they still don't understand what is the guiding force behind nature, and they are least bothered about the existence of such high-level intelligence. And that is when now this high-level intelligence is exhibiting that It can destroy anything, anytime. Millions of years before there were dinosaurs, they got destroyed. Dinosaurs tried to overpower Earth, they were destroyed. Now human beings are trying to overpower Earth, they are also going to be destroyed. It is high time that people realize that Earth does not belong to them, they belong to Earth. And Earth is permanent, they are temporary. This is what people have to realize. The educated people have to realize it much faster, because it is the well-educated people only who are harming the natural system. So this way, the majority of the thoughts are negative, filled with more imagination, more anxiety, more fear, and more stress. And this 90% is repetitive. If 90% of the thoughts are repetitive, and on day in and day out, if you have anxiety, fear, and stress, are you at peace? If you are not at peace, what are you doing with yourself? If you cannot have a easeful body, and if you cannot have a peaceful mind, what are you doing with both of them? You are spoiling your body, you are spoiling your mind. Now, why they should be given to you then? Your body is designed and manufactured inside your mother's womb, and it is given to you to use it. Now, if you misuse it, why should it be provided to you? And if you are given a mind which was supposed to be creative, which was supposed to be at peace, and which was supposed to be of help to the society, instead, if the mind is negative, filled with all anxiety, fear, and stress, now the question comes to the guiding force or the creative force, that if the resources are misused in this way, why the resources should be provided in the first place? To understand this, dhyana is required. To understand this, purification of mind is required. Dhyana helps in attaining concentration. More focus means better regulation of thoughts, which leads to organized mental activity, which further leads to energized brain. Now, brain is the seat of thoughts. Thoughts are arranged by the intellect, is again controlled by the ego. Behind the ego, there is the self. Now, to realize the self, ego has to be nullified. If ego has to be nullified, intellect has to be controlled. If intellect has to be controlled, mind must be stopped. That is where, after dharana, dhyana comes. First yama, then niyama, then asana, then pranayama, then pratyahara, then dharana, then dhyana, then samadhi. This is the sequence for self-realization. This leads to increased efficiency, increased confidence, increased patience, positive attitude, and planned life. Ever since human beings were born here, most of the diseases are caused by human beings only. Because in nature, there are so many other drastic, dangerous situations for other birds and animals. They somehow survive. Compared to the human being's lifestyle, there are threats in a daily basis to all other birds and animals. They somehow survive. And they don't suffer from these many varieties of diseases. Most of the diseases are caused by the human beings themselves. And with increased number of research, increased number of medical production, increased number of hospitals, increased number of tests, increased number of treatment, still people are not healthy. Whereas without any master health checkup, without any ECG or electrocardiogram checkup, without any MRI scanning, all the other natural birds and animals are living healthy. This simply means that The cause for most of the diseases or sicknesses which human beings are suffering is because of the lesser energized brain and misused body, misused mind. So with the practices of yoga, efficiency is increased, confidence is increased, patience has to be increased. The least thing which I am seeing with people is patience. People do not have patience. When the child is in the mother's womb, people are under anxiety. When it will come out, when it will come out, when it will come out, when delivery will happen. They will have anxiety. The moment when child comes, parents will have anxiety. When it will grow, when it will grow, when it will start talking. When it starts talking and crawling, they will have anxiety. When to admit it to school, when to admit it to school, which school, which school. After they admit it to school, they will have another tension. When the exams will happen, when the results will come, when it will pass into the next class, next standard, like that. Now primary school is over, they will have one more anxiety. When to send it to high school, which high school? After high school, when to send it to PUC, which college and which branch, whether it is science or arts or commerce. And then later on, after PUC, what type of career, what type of degree, what type of education. And after that again, if education is over, what type of placement, where to get a job, what type of business, how much of money. Then again, when to start a marriage, when to have marriage, how to get married to my daughter, how to get married to my son, how to buy a car so urgently, how to book a flat so urgently, and it goes on. After a few years, without their knowledge, for whatever effort they put for the marriage collapses after a few years. Divorces happen. And hurry. Grow up early, earn early, spend early, then die early. People don't have patience. Why they don't have patience? 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day, in which nearly 90% of them are repetitive. Andhena eva niyamana yatha andhaha is what the Upanishad states. Blind people are followed by, or blind people are guided by another set of blind people. They are all moving towards darkness only. The true purpose of life is grossly misunderstood. So, dhyana should help in increased patience and positive attitude, because yoga is your origination in God's action. At least that attitude should be developed. And gradually you will have a planned life, disciplined life. The time will be utilized in a better way. Why thought control? Let us discuss a little more. Why thought control? There are 4 antakarana. Antakarana means inner organs. Manas, chitta, buddhi, ahankara. Manas is the thinking part or the mind. Chitta is the storing part or the memory. Buddhi is the deciding part or the intellect. Ahankara is the controlling part or the ego. Out of these 4, you already know about Manas, you already know about Buddhi. Manas is Manomaya Kosha and Buddhi is Vijnanamaya Kosha. These you already know. But what is Chitta and where is Chitta? Chitta is the storing part or memory. Now the question is, many people think memory is in the brain. Now if I ask you, is there memory in a seed of mango? Is there memory in a seed of any pulse, any grain? Is there memory in a rice grain? There is. Because there is memory in a rice grain, that rice grain or what do we say? Paddy. The paddy, when it comes in contact with water, the paddy sprouts and becomes a paddy plant. Which means in the paddy, there is memory. In every seed, there is memory. So don't consider that memory is only in the brain. Memory is there even in the plants. If a cucumber plant or cucumber creeper is growing and then it is having a flower, when the flower is blooming, gradually flower becomes a small cucumber, and when you cut the cucumber, you will use it as a vegetable. But from where this cucumbers production happened, that means for the cucumbers production, there is memory within the plant, that this is how the plant cells have to be joined together to have a vegetable. Just think of this bitter gourd. In the bitter gourd, inside you will see seeds, outside you will see a serrated structure. Now this bitter gourd is an outcome in that creeper only, right? Or in that plant only, right? That means the plant has the memory to manufacture that particular vegetable in that particular shape. You will see some fruits we will have complicated inner structure. What about an orange? What about a Mosambi? What about a pomegranate? When you break open a pomegranate, you will see so many small fruits. Each one is a small fruit there. Now think about the pomegranate plant. Inside the pomegranate plant, only water is absorbed, and then it is going to absorb sunlight. How come in that particular plant which you are seeing, such a complicated pomegranate fruit got produced, where without your own knowledge, you will see that so many small fruits are organized? What about a jackfruit tree? In the jackfruit tree, you will see so many thorns outside. Inside, you will see so many small pulpy fruits. And each pulpy fruit will have another seed. Now, does it mean that memory is only in the brain? If you still think that memory is only in the brain, then your brain is a waste. Memory is part of nature. Memory is not just part of the brain. That's why I have been telling that brain is only a receptacle of the mind. Mind is much bigger than the brain. That is why it is called as Manomaya Kosha. It is another subtle energy. Similarly, Chitta is another subtle energy. If you read Lalita Sahasranama Stotram, you will have wordings about Chit. Chit. From Chit, Chitta has arisen. Chit means consciousness. From the consciousness, memory has arisen. When you get awakened, you will feel your own individual memory. Just like there are three types of dreams called physical dream, astral dream, and causal dream. Again, there can be three types of memory called physical memory, astral memory, causal memory. They are all connected. You think as you, I think as me, I am male, I am female, you are male, you are female. That way, we identify with our own names and forms. That is part of physical memory, which is stored in the brain. But when you cut your nail, again, when the nail grows, is it from the brain? The instruction comes all the way to the fingers that nail has to grow. There is a memory hidden there already, that whenever a nail is cut, the other side, the cells will transform themselves into nail again. So memory is multidimensional. That's why Patanjali calls yoga as Chitta Vritti Nirodha. He does not say it as Smriti Vritti Nirodha. Smriti means normal memory. Chitta is something different. Smriti is one of the Vritti for Chitta. So, Manas is Manomaya Kosha, Buddhi is Vijnanamaya Kosha. But Chitta and Ahankara are something different. We cannot say that Chitta is limited only to the brain, because there can be two types of beings, Thavara and Jangama. Brainless plants and animals are there. Brainless plants and trees are there. Even they have life. Now the moving beings will have brain. So it doesn't mean that the plants do not have memory. Even they have memory in their own way. It is 9 o'clock now. Let me talk more about Ahankara in on Monday's session. Tomorrow is Sunday. There will be no this session. See you on Monday. Take care and goodbye. Let me see who are all the participants. Okay, see you on Monday.